And good morning, all you wonderful people. So cool to see you. First time this year, is it? What is it? January the 4th? Yes, it is January the 4th. Yes, I am discombobulated. The last couple of weeks has screwed me up. Chat is running, as in TTS, I mean. Before I get to that, I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. What do I have on my screen here? I have got way too much. I'm clicking through, closing windows. Tassie, good morning, Tassie. Hang on. Okay, who is here? Amanda, good morning, Amanda, and Crispian, who's busily imbibing the caffeine. And what was it that Crispian said earlier in the chat? It was, oh yes, maybe coffee embalming. Is coffee a preservative? Does it work that way? Good morning. So too, Tassie Bob, Sharky, Lionel Mazels is here. Cool. Any mules? Imi again? I thought maybe Imi is here on 2 devices. Henrik and Grant is here as well. Probably a bunch of others just haven't appeared yet in the list on the TTS thingamadoodalaki. Oh, come on. Oh, okay. A whole lot of things are being blocked on bad word detected. Let's see if this works.
Hello, Happy New Year.
That was from Henrik. Thank you, Henrik. And this was
SSLLLOOWWWW.
Henrik, what are you trying to say? Hang on. I'm going to TT. Okay, it was this.
TTS.
Yeah, okay. And this was Crispian's contribution.
Boo.
Boo to you too, Crispian. Okay, so and I can see that there are a bunch more people in the chat who just haven't appeared in the TTS list yet. Why do I sound so chirpy? I don't know. There is no reason for it. Good morning to Simon and Russell Rainey. Austin is here. Stephen George is here. Stephen 44799 is here. So we got 2 Stevens. Oh, okay. So Simon just said that Linux was screwing with me again. Autoplay doesn't seem to work in Firefox. Okay. And let's see if TTS works for you, Amanda. Hopefully it'll catch up. Oh, should I put my phone on silent? No, I just saw a notification pop up. Henrik. Okay, here it comes from Henrik in a minute.
We hit the milestone, feel the energy. Subscribers.
So that was Henrik's 20-month membership silver supporter level celebration thing. Thank you, Henrik. What are we going to do today? Okay, last week we ended with, it's over there, okay. We ended with messing around with the shrouds for LED functionality detection and color analysis and all of those sorts of things. And so at this stage, I'm just trying to remember where this ended. At the end of the stream, I had the shrouds 3D printed. I had one fully assembled for 5mm RGB LEDs, or any 5mm LED technically. I'm just using them on 5mm through-hole RGB LEDs. And there is no end. That's right, Pete. I wonder how... Hang on, let's see.
At Relwetep said, there is no end MWHAHAHAHA.
I couldn't handle your laugh, Pete. So I then spent the rest of that day, it really was the rest of the day, it was through till like late last Sunday night, working on actually implementing all of that. So before we get to coding, oh yeah, and we are going to do some coding today. I'll show you where I got to with that. So, Johnny is here too. Good morning to Johnny. And no, I'm not going to do the here's Johnny. Henrik again. Thanks, Henrik. So Henrik is paying for my caffeine addiction and trying to choke myself. Let's have a look at this. So this is where I got to. I ended up having to make a few changes after the stream last week. I'll show you the end result and then point out a couple of the changes. So this is the module for testing the water cannon joystick. Excuse me. I may need to have another drink.
It was so you can grow a moustache.
So I can grow a moustache? Really? Okay, thanks, Henrik. Oh, that's right. I see there is a moustache in the super chat. I end up looking like Father Christmas.
Real said, play USSCHOON on the GITTAR John.
Play it on the guitar. Not today. So this is the updated module. I ended up making quite a few changes. The PCB is the same as the one that we were looking at last time. So the test pin carrier board is the same. However, what I did was scratch off some of the silk screen and solder down the mechanical mounting tabs for a JST SH 1mm connector on the back end there. And then I patched through. So these wires that you see, these ones here, they go in underneath the board. Those are to carry power and I2C all the way across from the other side, diagonally across the other side of the PCB underneath. They run under and expose I2C to that connector at the back. And then I had to cut new top plates. The support plate and the top plate are new. And you can see that I've done a couple of changes. Like around here, I've brought that edge in. So it acts as a key against that. So it's now impossible to put the board in the wrong way around. You can't put it in that way because the key stops it going in. So it's just like a little nice improvement. And I also added these clearances. I added clearances for both a vertical mount JST connector and a horizontal mount with space to get your fingers in so you can plug and unplug the cable. And I also tuned the edge clearance a little. Sometimes it takes a couple of iterations to get it so that the board will go in cleanly and sit down against the test pins, but not move around too much. So it needs just enough to be able to go in and be aligned accurately. So I ended up cutting several iterations of this top plate, tuning that to get the spacing just right. And then I also cut new iterations of the pressure plate. And what you can see here is the I2C cable coming up from the test module, going to the multiplexer, and then the multiplexer is going to two LED sensors. So we've got the 5mm round through-hole sensor here, and we have an 0603 surface mount sensor there. And they sit down. If I just put this straight on top, you can see that this one near my thumb here slides over the top of the through-hole LED, and it totally blocks it off from ambient light. And up here, the 0603 LED is totally encapsulated by this tester. So both of these color sensors that are inside these shrouds are connected through the I2C multiplexer back through the chassis, and the Raspberry Pi can talk to them. So when the device under test is put in the test jig, and then the pressure plate is lowered on top of it and then pressed down by the mechanism, it can now check the status of those two LEDs using those color sensing chips. So that's really cool, and I've messed around with the software, with the drivers, and it all works. So I'm actually kind of happy about all of this, because this has ended up in a situation now where the hardware is in a fairly decent state. I've got the CAN bus module under there. I've got the serial programming
Note
module.
you would look like an electronical Picasso with the moustache.
Okay, I could get behind being an electronical Picasso with the all the split lines. Yeah, so CAN bus serial interface and for debugging and for programming. We've got the sensors for the LED operation. We've got all of the pogo pins for connecting to all the different signals that come out of this. And it's now at the state where all of that functionality works. So that's good. Over the last probably year or so, I have put so much time into messing around with the hardware for this test system that the software really hasn't had that same TLC. So that is the whole point of the stream today. This hardware might be cool, but without some kind of software to interface with it, it doesn't really do that much. It's not that useful. Hardware is only useful with software. So, oh, I need more of that coffee. So, what the state of the software for the Testomatic at the moment is a whole lot of little building blocks or tests and bits and pieces, because as I've been working on the hardware, I've done things like set up the drivers for the color sensors for the LEDs and set up the code that does the upload through the programmer, and all of those other little things. And each of those things works in isolation, but it's not really properly cohesive yet, and I need to start pulling it all together and make it cohesive. And there are a few different aspects to that. There is the code that runs on the test chassis, and there is also the code that runs in the register, which keeps track of the results. So it logs all of the boards, all of the information related to testing the boards, and other information you might want to know, like what type of board it is, who the customer was, when it was shipped, any follow-up notes, like if it failed later in the field, you might want to add notes against it. So there is all this information that we need to keep track of in relation to these tests. And that is what we're going to play with a little bit today. So this is also partly a precursor to my talk at Everything Open in a couple of, this makes me panic, in a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks. Is it 2.5 weeks? I think so. I need to be ready to talk about this in a coherent way and fit it within 45 minutes in 2.5 weeks. That's going to be a challenge. All right, so what are we going to do? I'm going to move back over where I can see the chat. Okay, back over here, and I need a diagram that shows the architecture for this. But, okay, I'm thinking about just grabbing a piece of paper and drawing a diagram with the overhead camera. Yeah, I think I will, because it's kind of, I'm going to get into actual coding in a minute. Oh, hang on, I got to turn the mic down a fraction. Sorry, for all of you who were getting distortion and stuff, I didn't realize yeah, Stephen says you'll have to remove the squirrels to make it fit in 45 minutes. Or I could just let the squirrels run the show. That's an alternative. So, let's see if I can do something vaguely coherent. What are we going to do? Switch back to the overhead camera and do some diagramming. Diagramming. Okay, so what are we going to start with?
At RailwayTech said, update your Chrome.
Update
Question: if you
my
upload
Chrome?
a code that puts it into Wi-Fi, would it be possible to update the code in whatever computer, then like especially Home does in Home Assistant?
Hang on, let me read that question again, Henrik. So Henrik said, if you upload a code that puts it into Wi-Fi, would it be possible to update the code in whatever computer then, like ESP Home does in Home Assistant? I'm not quite sure what that question is about. Is that in the context of Testomatic, or is this a more general question? Put a device, a chip testing device. Okay, so here's what we know so far. Boxes. So I'm going to say, I'm going to need better labels for this, and I need to do a proper version of this diagram for...
At Amanda_RFT said, when are you going to use a whiteboard again?
A what board? When are you going to... Oh, whiteboard. Good point. I have a whiteboard in the new lab, but I don't have a camera pointing at it. I really should do that. I need to set up a proper whiteboard. Okay, so then we need... I'm just looking at the field of view of the camera here. Portal. Maybe I should use some different colors. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we have the device under test, which is the circuit board that you want to test, that gets mounted onto the Testomatic chassis using just like this, using the test module that provides the connections to it. That loads firmware, does test or whatever on the device under test and gets it into a working state. Or by get it into a working state, I mean load whatever firmware is required on it and then make sure that it's working. Then we need that information to go somewhere. Imagine you've run some tests on a board, and that might include calibrating an ADC. That's a really typical thing. In fact, I do that on this board. This board has a joystick that plugs in here. It's a Hall Effect joystick, which is it's a very high quality joystick. They're like $300 or something just for the joystick component, which outputs analog voltages, which are read by the ADC and the ESP. But the ADC needs to be calibrated because ESPs classically have terrible ADCs. And so there might be calibration values that are stored in EEPROM on the device, and you want to keep a record of them for future reference to see if anything went wrong, or see what deviation you're getting in the ADC, whatever. The specifics don't matter. The point is that when you run tests on a circuit board, you want to store the results. It doesn't make sense for those results to be stored on the test chassis itself, like on the device that is sitting on the factory floor that is running the tests, because you need to be able to get access to it. Now, that is actually a pretty common way to do it. It's quite normal to have something like an old Windows PC running the test system, and to have that PC just storing the results internally. And then, or if you build a test jig based around something like a Raspberry Pi, then you might be storing the test results on an SD card or somewhere like that. But it makes a lot more sense to push them into a central location, particularly if we have, say we've got, I shouldn't have called this chassis, I should have called it tester. But anyway, you get the idea. So we've got, imagine you've got multiple testers all working on the same type of board. If you've got a busy production line, you might have a whole lot of testers and you're cycling boards through. Or you might have testers that are set up for different targets. Like this one might be device under test 1, that's device under test 2, that's device under test 3. So these might be totally different boards all being tested, and you want to collate the test results somewhere. That's where the portal comes in. So the idea is that the tester will run the test, and then the results will be pushed up to the portal And the reason I've labeled it a portal, let's make it portal/register. So this is a place for storing all of that centralized information. So the people who access this might be staff, so your internal staff, and there might be a few of them. They might need to get, there might be, say, staff level access, there might be admin level access if you've got different levels of access control here. And externally, there might be a client or an end user. I'm just going to use the word client in this case. So there might be an end customer who also wants to get access to the test results. So in here, in the register, you have a wealth of information, which is the collated information that's come from running all of these tests and storing it in one place. And you want to be able to expose that somehow. Now, you may not be wanting to give clients access to it. You might just want to store it for your own purposes. This might be just you, no one else. And you want to look at all of this data that's stored in here. So this is the key. This thing here is the key of what we are going to be talking about today, because this is the thing that ties everything else together. It's the hub on the spoke for all of the different elements. And there are other things that come into this as well. For example, now, I'm not going to get into this in detail right now. I'm just going to mention it in passing. I don't want to misrepresent anything or misexplain anything. But so as many of you will know, my friend Andy has been working on a project called ICO for many years now, and the precursor to that as well. And it's a platform for building distributed systems, and it can be used for doing things like, among other things, it can be used for many things, but among other things, it can be used for doing things like creating pipelines for machine learning systems. And so one of the things that I'm going to incorporate into this at some point is the software that runs in here. Oh, and also I should point out, this is not the software that runs the tests. It is simply a place to store test results. It's got no idea how tests are run. The software that runs the tests is running on the tester. And so that code might do things like, it might push firmware to the device under test, read voltages and signals and CAN bus messages and things coming back from it. It is the code that does the test running. So this is called the test runner. And so what I'm going to do is incorporate ICO into all of this, so that, for example, if you want to use a machine learning model as part of the test process for doing analysis of signals that you're getting back or whatever it might happen to be, you could have some, where's another color? Okay, I'm going to do this in orange, just orange highlighted just because that's what I've got. I have to move this up here. ML, or let's say it's an LLM or whatever it happens to be, whatever form that machine learning model happens to be. What I want to be able to do is have the test runner software use ICO to be able to do things like send information to an external machine learning model and then have the results come back to it. Now, a good example for that might be, you might have a photo or some kind of an optical analysis of the board, and you want to detect tombstones, or you want to detect missing parts or something like that. What you could do is push the photo of the board to a machine learning system, which then does an analysis of the photo and then sends back a result. And then you incorporate that into your system. So we're not going to be doing anything about that today. I'm just mentioning this in passing. But ultimately, I want to be able to incorporate external resources. So this may not be running locally. And the reason for doing this is that if you've got a little lightweight test chassis, you don't necessarily want to be running a model directly on your test chassis. What you would do is have the test chassis integrate with the device under test and use whatever sensors and things it needs to, and then communicate with some external service. So this could be locally hosted. You might have a machine with some graphics cards sitting in a rack or something, or it could be an external service where you're calling an API on a commercial system that you are paying for by the hour or by the operation or whatever. So that will come. None of this exists yet, but I do want to incorporate ICO into this at the point where this test runner starts really being fleshed out. So at the moment I have the test runner in a state where I can use it to flash firmware onto the target device, and I've got the touchscreen on the Pi working so that I can select what the target device is and then tell it to go, and it does all its flashing and then returns the output of the flash process, stores that in a text file. It stores various other things in a text file locally, and it all stays on here. But what we're not doing is pushing all of those results into here. So the focus for today is, let's see if this highlighter works. Whoop. This, the register. And so hopefully that picture makes sense. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking about this part, and I'm going to show you where that is up to. I need another drink. Oh, I should have muted first. I'm sorry. Oh, Stephen says, have you seen Kafka? It's like MQTT but made to scale. Yes, I have seen Kafka. Yeah, there are quite a few pub/sub type systems around, and yes, but Andy has just given an answer to that. Pete says to update my Chrome. Oh, but if I update my Chrome, it's going to restart. And I have so many tabs and things open, and including probably dozens of YouTube tabs with videos that then all autoplay. And like, if I ever restart my machine, the first 5 minutes of it is hunting down, it's playing that game of where is that sound coming from. There'll be some voice that'll be talking about something, and my computer is just talking to me with like 20 voices at the same time, all overlapping. And then I've got to hunt through and find what tab on what window each one of them is coming from, and then pause that video. So it's kind of annoying. Okay. So, Stephen says, does John CAD support color now? Oh, and Jordan is here too. Okay, a couple of people have joined the chat. Inexplore, welcome. John Whips, Jordan, Andy is here. So the actual expert is here. So this is going to be nerve-wracking. All right, so quite some time ago, when was it? So none of this is new. None of this is new. Hang on, I'm going to go back to code and commits. Where did this start? So many of you will know my friend Mitch. He put a lot of time into, where are we? 193 commits. I'm just going to go back to the start of time. When was this repo created? Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he has put a huge amount of time into creating the bit in yellow, the register. And I'll show you where we're up to with it. So I've got to give a huge shout out to Mitch for this. He's done an enormous amount of work. And so this is a Django app, and it's using React, I think. Shows how much I know. So it's using React for the UI, and it has, so the version that is running here, which you can't get to, I've linked to this a couple of times in the past, and so there are various people. I know Amanda has tried to load load one of the QR codes that I showed previously. What I've done is, in fact, what'll I pull up? D dot that. If I go to that URL, you can see variations of the URL here. If I go this URL that you can see here on the screen, this is an example of a typical QR code that is put on a board. And so you can see that it is a link to d.superlab.au with a number after it. That number is the serial number of a board. And d.superlab.au is the host name that is used for this particular deployment. And the idea is that this allows a redirect to be used that is not the canonical address of the portal. And it means that we can have URLs that are specific to a client, and then have a redirect or whatever. It means there's an extra layer of abstraction that we can use. So in this particular case, d.superlab.au is the short URL that is used for my boards that I build, but it could be something different for other people's boards, and they could point back to the same portal and work interchangeably. So if I go to that, oh, not found. Okay, that's because I'm not logged in probably. Oh, no, it's not because it's not logged in. It is because the, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there we go. It's because I haven't done an import on that, and the database doesn't have that serial number in it yet. So what we're looking at here is the current deployed version of portal.superhouse.tv, which is the Testomatic portal at the expanded URL, and it is the details for one device. So this is device serial number 1234, and we could search for devices by putting a serial number in here or whatever. So 1235. Let's see what happens. Device search. Yeah, so now we're on serial 1235, and you probably didn't notice anything much change because it would have been consecutive serial numbers for different units of the same thing. And you can see that this particular thing was added 21st of August 2023. So yeah, this has been going for a while. And we can see various information about it. Now the idea is that for my clients, I want them to be able to log into this portal and see information about boards that I have produced for them. Not about boards I've produced for other customers, of course. It needs to be segmented so that there are access controls and they can only see boards that are related to them. Now I am logged in as myself, and my user has an admin flag applied to it, which means I can see anybody's. So I could search for any serial number across any customer and I'd see all the information. If a user who is logged in for that particular client, so this is T-Rex water trucks, if there is a user for that client, and there can be multiple users, the data model for this has organizations and users belong to an organization. I believe they can belong to multiple organizations. So you could have one user who is part of 2 different organizations, and they can also have an admin flag applied, which essentially overrides all of that and gives them access to everything. So, hang on, I've got to mute so that I can cough and imbibe some caffeine. All right, now, I feel like I'm kind of rushing through this and not explaining it very well. But I want to get to the actual interesting thing where we're going to start messing around with some code. It would... okay. Sorry, I just glanced at the chat. It looks like Stephen is being a Kafka evangelist. Stephen says, okay, I'm going to read Andy's first. Andy's comment was, Kafka is well known for use in large-scale projects. MQTT is simple and lightweight, and whilst lacking a few necessary concepts, there are no theoretical reasons that it won't scale. And Stephen said, while you could try to scale MQTT, it would become an unnecessarily fragile component when Kafka does the same base things but fixes those issues. Yeah. This seems like an unnecessary argument to have. I personally have many, many years of experience using MQTT, and I've never had any problems with it. I've used it on... I have not used it on any large-scale projects. That is the caveat. I've used it on significant projects, and but certainly nothing of the scale that Andy has. Andy uses MQTT. I'm going to be careful what I say here because I don't want to breach confidences or anything. But Andy uses MQTT as the underlying communications mechanism for passing around real-time video and, well, no, not real-time video. That's done using a different thing. But it can be used for passing around video frames and all sorts of stuff very, very quickly. Lots and lots of messages, surprisingly large messages. And anyway, I don't want to get into this, but my limited experience with MQTT is that it is very robust and surprisingly scalable. It is amazing what you can push through it. Yeah, as Andy says, the MQTT implementation of Mosquito is very reliable, provides a good security model. MQTT is used by AWS IoT. Yeah, it works at very big scale. All right, Henrik asked an interesting question, which is how hard would it be to switch over to Kafka? And as I said, I don't want to get derailed by this too much. The short answer is, if you are not relying on specific features of the pub/sub mechanism that are implemented in one system and not in another, it shouldn't be particularly hard, particularly if you have a well-structured application where you are publishing and subscribing through using code that is reasonably modular. It should be possible to swap it out to use a different transport mechanism and not change the overall structure of your application. But let's get into the real thing. Okay, because that is outside of my field, my area of expertise. In fact, all of this is outside of my area of expertise. Now, what we have here, what we're looking at here is the currently deployed version of the portal. And it has two very distinct sections. You can see in the URL here that we have device and then a serial number. And if we go to, is it this one? Yeah, device. So we go to the device register section. Now this is it's actually got some dodgy data in there too. At the moment, this is not in a state where I have customers logging into it. My goal is to make that happen as soon as possible. And that is part of the point of, of what we're going to be going over today. So we've got a list of clients, we've got a list of designs, and you can see they are grouped by client in this case. The terminology here is client, and I have made some change. As what I'm showing you now is the baseline of the system that Mitch has built, which embodies the basic data model and some UIs for different purposes. But I want to extend that now and change a few things to make it work more the way I would like it to work, and then make it accessible to my clients. But before it can be accessible to clients, I need to fix a few things. So you can see here we've got a list of designs. Now each one of these is a design for a PCB, essentially. That's what it comes down to. And you can see that they are grouped by client. So it starts off with the Superhouse automation list. This is not alphabetical. Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, this is not alphabetical. This is based on the serial number in the database or something like that. So first one, and Superhouse automation happens to be organization 1 in the database. And you can see the SKU, so the Air Quality Sensor Pro version 4.1 is in there. And then you can see that there are some in here that have multiple versions, I think. Let's see if we can find, oh yeah, here we go. Rack 32. So you can see there is the Rack 32 with the PCB antenna in a version 1.0, and you can see there is the same thing in a version 1.1, and external antenna 1.0, 1.1. And that is, what this reflects is revisions of the hardware, because we need to treat each new revision of the hardware as if it's not so much as if it's a new product, but it needs to be its own distinct thing. You need to be able to differentiate, if I have this board in my hand, what version of the hardware is that? Because the tests could change, the firmware that you want to load on it could change. You might have fixed hardware bugs in a new revision, so you want to know what you're looking at. So there is an entry for each version. It is not just Rack 32 and then version 1.0 as an attribute, because the other way of structuring this, the other way this data model could work is you could have an entry for the Rack 32 as an entity, and then you could have attributes of it. So you could, or variants. You could have a version 1.0 variant, a version 1.1 variant. And that is a perfectly legitimate way to do this. It's just that in the way this is set up at the moment, each revision of the hardware is treated as a different thing. So maybe that is, I mean, the data model can be, in terms of how you represent it to the user, the underlying data model works either way. It's not too much of a problem. So, yeah, so, sorry, I was temporarily distracted by the ongoing discussion about pub/sub messaging systems. So there are also these sorts of questions are all the sorts of things that Mitch and I have been thinking through over the time that we've been working on this portal system. How do we structure this data? How do we represent it to customers and internally? And so the way this version works, the version we're looking at right now, it has two different sections. There is device and office. Now I'm going to have to be careful a little bit about what I click around on, and I'm not scrolling down too much on this page either. So with the device section, the idea the concept originally was that the device section is where customers would log in, and that's all they would see. So, for example, they might, if I logged in here as a customer user with limited access, I would not see all this list of clients. I would not see all of these designs. I'd only see the ones that are associated with me. And if I typed in a serial number, it would only return results that I have access to. And that's where we would see results like this. So if I was someone working at T-Rex water trucks and I logged in and I typed in the serial number for a board that I had in my hand, I would be able to see all the information about it. So, you know, what the software version was that was loaded on it, what the hardware version was, etc. So, and even things like invoicing, what purchase order it was against, when it was shipped, and I'm going to show you some of that in a moment as well. And in here we've got events. So we've got an event in this case which is firmware being installed on it. This was done in the test chassis, and it was version 8.0.0 firmware. And you can see there is a little flag that shows whether it's an internal or a global note or a global event. So if what this allows is to have records against a device that are kept internal so that even my customers can't see it. So what I could do is I could add a device event here, and I could say internal, do not show, it's a note, and this is a test note, and save it. So now there is a note against this particular device. Now this might be a situation like, imagine this board had to be reworked and you wanted to add a note about that, or yeah, I'm trying to think of scenarios. But anyway, there might be something that you want to make a note against this particular device and keep it internal. And this little lock icon shows that this is an internal note. So if my customer logged in to see this, they would not see that note. It just wouldn't exist. But they would see this one, and they would see that on 29th of October 2025, the firmware version 8 was installed on this board. So they can see that that event took place. And you can see that there is a test log here. So the test, in this particular case, this came in from a spreadsheet. I'm not going to get into that that whole thing right now. That's something for another day perhaps, because all of this ties into a Google Sheets spreadsheet as well, which is a whole other complication. So this diagram also happens to have a Google Sheets thing hanging off it, but I didn't include that because ultimately that may or may not be included, and that is still something that is up for discussion. So admin for this device, that takes us to a page for editing information about it. So we could change things, like we could edit the actual data in here. Oh yeah, you can see it's got a little note up here, event added, because I added this one. So this is the interface that the customer would see. They could look up the information about a particular board they have in their hands and see what's going on with it. Now, the other section of this, so that's the device subsection of the portal. The other section of this is the office section. And this is essentially, oh, I just revealed an email address, but oh well. I don't think Sam will mind, and it's an obsolete email address anyway. I will need to be careful about what I click in here, because some of this is not sanitized. But things like devices, this is where you can do things like have a look. You can see here this thing, there's a coin detect. This is like a list. It's the same similar thing to the list as what we were looking at in the devices section. It's just this is looking at it from the admin side. test images, test records. So we go into test records and you can see, oh, there's a test record for that. It was a passive outcome on IO Relay 8, blah, blah, blah. This was on 28th of January 2021. And etc, etc. Device events. I wonder if this is going to show the one I just added. Oh, it's sorted by from oldest to newest. So let's go down to the bottom. No, 63. Device event. It's not showing. Interesting. It's not showing the event of where I oops. Delete selected device events of me adding the note. Okay, so list of designs, and from this is where you can do things like create designs and view. So we could do add a design. So this is a new board. I could say who the client is, what the SKU is, what the hardware name is, all that sort of stuff. Price. This is a bit of a dodgy thing at the moment. This really needs to be cleaned up. It's kind of a hangover to a slightly dodgy way that I use the Google Sheets spreadsheet at the moment for when I'm pricing boards out for clients. The information from the spreadsheet gets imported, and then these are holding cells for that information. So we can add a new design in here, and then serial numbers can be, for new boards, can be added against that design. So that is kind of where it is right now. We have the office section, which is like the which is, it's like the raw back end where you're looking at the direct records of what's going on in the system. And you can do things like add users, add them to organizations, and assign access privileges. So you can say this particular design is part of this organization, this user is part of this organization, and therefore this user can see this device, all devices with that design. So this is the back end, the back end. Sion! Sion is here. Welcome. Hang on, I should see who else has appeared in the chat. I've not been looking at the chat at all while I've been rambling. Okay. But this is not, I'm going to come back to here, but this is not really, I mean, it's functional, but I want to make some changes to it. It's a bit confusing. It also doesn't show things the way that I want it to show it. So I want to make some changes to this. And that is the whole purpose of what's taken me nearly an hour to get to the starting line. So what I've got is a local installation of this portal. I've got it running on my Mac right here, and I've made a the chat really has turned into a MQTT versus the world sort of thing. Okay, so in order to give my clients access to this, I want to make some updates. I want to make some aesthetic changes, and I want to make some structural changes, and also make things like URLs. Yeah, they're pretty sensible already. But at the moment, what happens is if you go to this, say you just go to the portal with no argument, you get a 404 because they're inside the in the application. There is no route handler for the root of, like, the root of the URL. You just get a 404. There's no, it doesn't even ask you to log in or anything. It's just nothing. So if we go back to, where is it? Add device on there. So you can go to device and see the devices section, or you can see to go to /office and you see the back end office section. So I want to just massage this a bit and make it so that it has a more unified, smoother sort of feel as you're navigating around it. So this is the version that is running on my local computer, which I have been hacking around on. And what I've done is, in fact, I'm going to get rid of that URL, and you can see that it still works. So what I have done is taken various pieces of the functionality that exist in the device register section and the admin section, the office section of the existing version, and I have merged them in and also applied a template, so it now has this theme applied to it. If you don't put any extension on it, you just end up at this dashboard, which shows number of boards assembled each month. It's very spiky. Goes up, big month, small month, small month, small month, big month, small, yeah, small, big month. So you can see that since we started recording data in this, so also I've changed some of the terminology. We can see organizations, designs, and boards. In the existing system, they're called devices, and I just changed them to boards. I don't know why. It just seemed to make more sense to me. And I think it's just because when I'm talking to customers, I don't use the terminology device. I use the terminology board. Like if I'm talking to a customer and I say, oh, I've got a fault on this board, or, you know, we need to add connectors to this board. We don't say we need to add connectors to this device. So it's just a slight smoothing of the terminology. But I point that out to so that you understand that when I have in here organizations, designs, and boards, that is the equivalent of devices. So it's the same thing. I just changed the label. And in fact, the URL still works with /device. So you can see that in the database on my local installation, I've got 5,755 boards that we have physically assembled and that have been logged in the system. And that is actually the real number. Since January 2021 was the first record. Now these early records were all just kept in a spreadsheet. They weren't, this database didn't exist back then. So the first version of this, and what has been used for quite a long time, is a Google spreadsheet which lists each of the boards, and it has the, just wondering if I should show it to you. I probably shouldn't. It's probably a really, really bad idea. But let's, I'm gonna look at it privately first and see if I can show you. Oh, you need access. That's because I'm logged in as the wrong user. Okay, change to that user. Okay, yeah, I can show you this. I can show you the start of it anyway. All right, so this is how it all began. Way back then. And you can see what I did was I created this spreadsheet called device serial numbers, and it's got a serial just starting at 1. So the very first board was that was logged in, it was a water cannon controller version 4.1 back on the 20th of January 2021. And then you can see that I assembled a batch of IO breakout boards. They're all hardware version 2.0. You can see the date that they were assembled, the date they were tested, and you can see notes against these two saying melted connector not for sale. Those particular ones didn't have any firmware on them, and the various other columns here don't matter for these purposes. So you can see that back in January 2021, I started logging all of this in this spreadsheet. And you can, yeah, it was just a way of keeping track of what I was building, I started the serial numbers at 1, and there is a device types table here, which I will not show you. So these are actually a lookup against, if I go to that, or is it? Maybe it's, yeah, it's a VLOOKUP. So what this is doing is looking at the device type serial, and then it is doing a VLOOKUP against the device types table to get the label. It gets the label, the hardware version, and in later records it gets more data as well. So what I was doing here was using a spreadsheet when I really should have been using a database. So this is the origins of all of this. Everything that we've been talking about started in this spreadsheet back in January 2021. And then I just started keeping records of every board I built. And it was after that, talking to Mitch, that we decided this really should be better done in a database rather than a spreadsheet. And that is what led to this little project. And now, and there is an importer. So there is an import script that takes data from that spreadsheet. So what I do is I export from this. I just go File, Download as a Microsoft Excel, so XLSX format, and then it gets SCP'd over to the VM that is running this portal, which is on Linode, and the script then parses the Excel file and squirts that information into the database. So that...
And Amanda_RFT said, what backend did you use for the database?
I am pausing because it actually supports multiples. It supports Postgres, and for local installations, hang on. I will answer that question in a moment. Maybe once we get to looking at my local installation. So this is, I'm actually trying to remember what is running on the live one. I think the live one is running Postgres. So, yeah, back to here. So this is this early information that you see here. That's right, that was the point I was getting to. This early information was pulled from the spreadsheet. It wasn't recorded directly into the database. And you can see a hierarchy here. What we don't have is users. Not visible in this particular thing anyway. So we have boards, and each board belongs to a design, and designs belong to organizations. So if I just go to boards, you can see here, look at this, it matches right there. So device ID 1, Canon version 4.1, you can see device serial 1, Canon 4.1, and then we've got the back of the relay, IO relay 8s. So this spreadsheet is now embodied in this database. And if we scroll down, you can see the same things as we were seeing in the spreadsheet before. And it's now all paginated as well. Now, there is something fairly major that I want to add to this. If I go into designs, you can see different things. So Superhouse all grouped together, just like with, if I go into, where is it? Designs in here, you can see grouped Superhouse and all of the Superhouse designs. I won't scroll down below that too much. And that is just, at the moment, it's just a list of designs. And similarly, if we put in a serial number, like that same one we were looking at before, 1234, we can see the information about it. Very similar to in here, 1234. This one has the test note that I added, but apart from that, it is basically the same thing. But it's within the context of this updated user interface. Now my plan for this is thinking about how far to go into this. My plan for this is to make less of a distinction between staff and customers than in the existing system. So the idea with this is that when you are in the device section, you are a customer essentially. When you're in the office section, you are staff. And so things like changing designs is done in the staff section, and looking at devices only is done in this section. I know this could be potentially controversial, but I prefer to have this slightly integrated so that both, for the most part, for normal day-to-day operations, when a customer is looking at a record for a board like this, like say someone from T-Rex is looking at this board and I'm looking at this board, I want to be seeing the same thing as they are seeing. So I want the view to be the same. And I want them to be able to go into designs, for example, and see a list of designs, but obviously only the ones that are relevant to them. They shouldn't see other customers' designs. So what I want to do is apply filtering based on the currently logged in user, rather than have a totally separate section for dealing with that. All right, now, we're actually finally going to get somewhere now. So, here is what I want to do. If I look for serial number 5678, I know this one is going to do something because this is the one I was messing around with yesterday. Well, over the last week, actually. This record is for a monitor control module, which is for the water cannon controller. You can see that this particular board was built on the 2nd of December 2025, so not that long ago, 4 and a bit weeks ago. This is possibly revealing a bit of internal information, but it's not too confidential. It's okay. So it's showing the invoice. So if the customer logs in and they look at the record for this board, they can see the invoice that this board was included against. They can see their own purchase order number. So this was PO989, and they can see shipping information, and they can even, in fact, I'm going to check this. I'm going to click, oh, look at that. We got to 11 o'clock on a Sunday, so Java wants to do its broken update. Go away. I'm just going to click on this to make sure that it doesn't reveal anything too much. Yeah, no, that's all right. It doesn't. Cool. So there are a few changes that I've made over the last week. One is if the shipping record is a TNT shipping record and it has a consignment note number in it, it now turns it into a live link to TNT shipping. So if a customer wants to get the information about when it was shipped, they can just click on that and they can see everything, when they received it, etc., how it was shipped. They can check the proof of delivery. And that can be done even before it's arrived, because this record will exist before the customer receives the board. They might have a batch of boards that are on the way and they want to log in and see, where is that? What's happened to the shipment? All the shipping information is there. You can see that there is an event here that was added. Now this is wrong. there is a bug that needs to be fixed, because this is not when it was shipped. That is showing an update time on the record, not the date of the event. So there are some things to resolve there. But you can see there's a shipping record that's been added, there's a firmware record that's been added, there is a test that was executed on 4th of December, and the outcome was that it passed. Now, this is getting to the bit...
Unexpected Maker said, how much time have you invested in developing this asking for a friend?
A lot. A lot. So you can see also that there is a picture of the board, because there is a little light box just next to the tester, and when boards are assembled and ready to ship, they get photographed. The photograph gets synced using Dropbox up to the Linode VM, and it gets processed by a script that looks for the QR code and extracts the serial number from it, and then that serial number can be used to associate the photo with the device. So the customer can, if there was a problem with the board, the customer can come along and say, oh, there is a photo, there is the actual board, and they can zoom in on it and make sure. You can see there's glue on here. There's because these boards are subjected to very high Gs, they get the crap shaken out of them. They get bashed around. We apply Loctite glue to parts that potentially have problems. I've seen these be ripped. So yeah, I've talked about this before. I've seen the capacitors being ripped right off the board because they get hit so hard. They get bashed into things. It's like, imagine hitting the side of the board with a hammer. That's the force that these boards get subjected to. I've seen inductors ripped off the board. So they go to some pretty nasty places. So you can see, yeah, the customer can log in and verify that, yeah, it was assembled correctly. All the parts are there. This can also be used, this could be passed to a machine learning system to look for faults on solder joints or whatever. Now you can see there's a part that's missing there.
QR code label isn't quite straight. Sloppy.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Tinker. Yeah, you can see there's a part that's missing there. That is actually a 0 ohm resistor, and that is for a voltage selection option. That has been optimized out of a future design. This is a slightly outdated design. Anyway, point being, there is a history here of this specific
An
board.
Unexpected Maker said, what are you photographing the board with?
I don't want to get into that too much because that is a whole thing as well. Right now, I'm photographing them with my phone. I've got a light box with a hole cut in the top of it. It's all lined white, and there are LED strips inside it. So I sit my phone on top of the box, and it takes photos straight down through the hole into the light box. And then my phone does Dropbox sync of those photos. But one of the things on my board and on my board, one of the things on my to-do list is to make a better light box, because what I want to do is suspend the board in the middle on a piece of acrylic and take photos both top and bottom. I want a bottom camera looking up and a top camera looking down, so that when customers come in here, they'll see both top and bottom photos of the board. And so I'll probably do that with a Raspberry Pi linked to a couple of cameras. Anymeal says, is it any coincidence that the same customer has board numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8? That is a total coincidence. And the other reason for wanting to photograph both sides of the board is that it means that I can put the serial number sticker on the bottom of the board and it doesn't matter. If it takes a photo of the top and the bottom, it knows that those two photos are of the same board, and if it finds the serial number on either the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. It just associates them.
001 said, 4-side view cameras too.
Side view cameras, maybe. Or we could put it on a little gimbal and rotate it, get a full 3D view. Okay, got to get to some coding. Got to get to some coding. Now, we are actually narrowing in on the point here. So this is something that I just added on Friday, I think it was, is the ability to upload a photo. Now, I'm going to open something else off screen because I want to show this process. Now, processed images, that one will do. What serial number are we looking at? Oh, let's go to the next serial number. Let's go to 5679 because it won't have a photo. See this? No photo. And, but it is the same board, same type of board from the same batch. It's just the next consecutive serial number, which is why most of the information looks the same. Now, if I go to what am I looking for? 5679. What I've got visible here to me off screen, 5675. Come on, it's got to be here somewhere. Are these sorted out numerically? 5679. 5. Come on. 5, 6. How can I not find 5669? Am I looking in the right place? 5, 6. Maybe I don't have a photo of it. 5, 6. I may not have processed that photo. Okay. 5, 6. 5, 6. Okay, I'm just going to pick another one. I'm going to pick 5687 because it's another MCM and it also does not have an image. No photo means it never happened.
Unexpected Maker said, no photo means it never happened.
Dentistries. Yes, it is. There is a long answer to that question, which is this a system for your customers to check the products they have ordered? Yeah, that is one of the things that it does, is it allows customers to log in, look up a serial number, and see the history of that particular device. Okay, so this is device 5687. So what I did just recently was I added this. Now if I go to upload image, I'm going to grab that and add a note against it. Test of upload will do, and upload. And so now you can see that we have a picture of that particular board. So 5687 is now uploaded and it is associated with that record. So if the customer logs in, they can see it. However, this is the whole point of today. I manually uploaded this. Oh, and also there's nothing stopping you having multiple images. There could be however many images you want. And it might be quite legitimate to have an image and then another one if the board needed rework. You might take a photo showing the rework just as a record of the fact that like how it was done and for future quality checks and that sort of thing. So I could upload another image. There could be multiple images here associated with this. However, what I do not currently have is a way of adding images in a bulk fashion. So
At Tinker001 said, maybe even a video. Show off the blinking lights.
potentially, yeah, there could be all sorts of media that is associated with it. Now, I'm going to, where are we? Cursor, did I have it running? No, I must have quit out of it. Okay. So, I am going to bring up, let's bring this up on screen. So, what are we looking at here? Let's got to try to make it all fit too. It's not that easy when when we're dealing with this little monitor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a couple of different things. There are really 3 steps that I can envisage here that I need to do in order to be able to do a bulk upload, because I have thousands of photos for boards. And as you saw before I did this upload, board 5687 did not have a photo associated with it. I've got it sitting on my file system, but they are not being added to the test records. And I need a mechanism to allow that to happen in an automatic or a semi-automatic way. I can't be coming in here and going upload image and then manually adding an image each time. The functionality for doing that manually is there, and that is important, but it also needs to be possible to do that automatically using an API connect that allows us to push images. So imagine we've got our light box that is sitting there next to the tester. We've tested the board, put it in the light box, you press the button to take the photo. The Raspberry Pi then takes top and bottom photos and processes them to extract the serial number. It now has 2 photos associated with a serial number, and it needs to do something with them. So it needs to be able to push them to the register.
001 said, are the file names standardized with the serial number?
Not initially. So what happens is that I have a script at the moment. So I've got a little Python script which, so I've got an incoming queue of photos. In fact, let's see if, can I show you this? Yes, I can. Okay. So what happens is I have incoming images. Is there anything in this? No. Okay, this is empty at the moment. So what happens is that when photos are taken, they are synced by Dropbox and they get dumped into this incoming images folder. Then there is this script, processphotos.py. Let's open this just in Sublime Text, just so, and before I show it, I'm just going to do a quick, nope, there's nothing bad in there that I can see. So then this script runs. And what it does is, it's got some configuration stuff here, and you can see a bit of an explanation. It looks in the incoming images folder for JPEGs. So these are all of the images that would have been uploaded into that incoming images folder. And it gets a list of them. So it then tells you the images that it found, and it then processes the file name to extract the timestamp, because the actual format that they are saved will be something like year, month, day, hour, minute, second. So it extracts the timestamp from the file name. It then converts it into a different format, because I wanted to remove the dots and replace them with underscores, and I wanted to replace these with underscores and add a dash in between, so there'd be no spaces in the file name. It then does a CV2 image read, color conversion, and some thresholding stuff. So this is using OpenCV. And then so this is all to find a bounding box. So it's because the field of view of the camera is a certain thing. Like, you can change the zoom, but still, what I wanted to do was have it crop the image in around the board, because the board is sitting there on a white background, and I just wanted to crop it in automatically. So it finds the bounding box, does some cropping, and then it looks at that cropped image and it searches for barcodes. excuse me. So it looks for a regular barcode, and then it does a QR code detection. And in either case, it pulls the serial number out of either a barcode or a QR code. And you can see here it's pulled out a serial number and complains if it can't find a serial number in the image. If it can, what it does is it moves the file into the processed images folder. It prepends the serial number and the reformatted date and .jpeg. So the end result is that the original image gets cropped in, it gets its serial number extracted, it then gets renamed with serial number and the date and time stamp. So this script is what is currently processing all of that. Cancel, sorry, that's an unrelated thing. That's just some debug info I had. So this is currently what's happening with the images, and a complete copy of, so when it does that, it makes a backup of the image. So an unmodified, uncropped, exact original copy just gets moved into the backup folder. So if I need to reprocess...
Tinker001 said, so next step for that script is to upload the photos for you rather than just saving to processed folder.
Yes. We have got to the point. So the point is, I need to get those images into here, uploaded automatically. So, back here. Okay, so I'm going to be using Cursor for this, which with Claude integration. So, oh boy, where do I begin with this? This is largely an experiment for me. Now there are, using AI for coding is a contentious topic. It's something that is very much evolving rapidly.
Tinker001 said, how are they stored on the server in a folder?
Yes, they are. There is an images directory. So they're not stored in the database. They are stored just in a directory. So when they're uploaded, they go into a media folder, and they are grouped. So they inside the media folder are subdirectories. Whoops. And the subdirectories are the serial number, and then the file is stored within that, because I didn't want to end up with 50,000 images in the same directory. So it's grouping them by serial number.
At Tinker001 said, SCP then.
Well, yeah, I could copy them on that way, but that, yeah, there are other ways to do it. So that's what I'm getting to. Now, okay, this would be the biggest can of worms ever if I started getting into the whole debate of best practices and things for using machine learning for coding. And I am not an expert in this at all, not even close. This is, what you're seeing is essentially me experimenting and learning and trying to figure this stuff out. Now there are people who, there are all of the boosters who will say programmers aren't going to be relevant anymore. The job won't exist because all you'll do is talk to an AI, tell it what you want, and it will spit out perfectly functioning code, which for the foreseeable future I think is rubbish. And there are others who say machine learning. I mean, I'm setting up extreme straw man like limits here. At the other extreme, you have people who say you should never use machine learning or AI agents for coding because, well, for many reasons. One is that you don't know what it's doing, you don't understand its code, you don't know its reasoning, and it's also been trained on material that may be ethical things about this. It's a very complicated topic, and that is not the point of what I'm wanting to talk about right now. So So what I've been experimenting with just recently is using Cursor, which is based on VS Code with Claude AI built into it. I believe it also supports other agents and things, like you can integrate different agents into it, but I'm just using it with Claude, which is its default. And you can see over here on the side that I've opened the project. These files that you see on the right are all of the files related to the portal. This is my local copy, which is running on my local Mac. So when we load this, you can see 127.0.0.1 port 8000. The files that are driving this are this. We are looking right now at the files that are on that live test deployment or development deployment. So there are a bunch of different ways that something like Claude could be used for coding. And there are some good practices around it. For example, you can treat this as a case of tell it what you want and have it generate a bunch of code for you. But the problem is that if you do that over a long period of time, what can happen is that your early requirements can start to become lost. And that is because the agent has a limited context window. It knows about what you're talking to it about right now, plus a bit of history. And the context windows have been getting bigger and bigger over time, very rapidly actually. But they are still finite. And so the technique that is typically used within the agents themselves is that they will have a context window. When you start interacting with it, you put in your prompt. It has access to various other external resources. So you might have like a RAG type system where it's got, it's augmented by reference material, and then you start interacting with it. So you ask it a question or you tell it to do something, and it then acts on your prompt and then does something, generates an output or a response. As you do that, you start to use up context. It grows and grows and grows. That context is finite. It is not going to remember every single thing you ever said to it over a long coding session. So the typical solution for that, the way this is handled, is that behind the scenes, what happens is that the model will have the context that you are currently operating in, and then it will periodically need to move to a new context. And what they typically do is they provide context overlap. So they might take the last 10 to 20% of the previous context and feed it into the new context as a seed, so that when you are interacting with it, it seems seamless. You will be interacting with it and asking it questions and things, and it'll be responding on the basis of the context that it sees. But at a certain point, it starts losing history. It doesn't see all of the way back to the start of the way you're interacting with it. So there are various techniques that can be used to put some guardrails around this and to make it safer. And this is an area where, once again, my preface to all of this is, I am the furthest thing from an expert in this area. All I know is, so Andy does his best to educate me. Thank you, Andy. But my brain only takes in a small percentage of what Andy says to me. So
An unexpected maker said they compact the previous context into smaller summaries, which is totally hit and miss.
Yeah, that's right. So So you're not dealing with, the point is that there are these different techniques that are used to extend it and make it seem like you have a long, seamless interaction, but it's not. So, so Andy, whose brain is far bigger than mine, keeps providing me.
Tinker001 said, not to mention that it's initially trained on unproven code.
Yeah, yeah. He keeps he keeps trying to educate me, and I can only take in. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I take in a small amount of what he says. So hopefully, I'm not misrepresenting this. But one thing that he was explaining to me a little while ago is that a good practice to use when coding with an agent is to do things like document your requirements. And in some ways, this feels a little bit like a waterfall model of software development, where you start with a requirements doc, and then you have a development team who works on those requirements to implement them. But you start with a spec or requirements. And the reason this is so helpful when you are dealing with an agent, like a coding agent for helping you do this, is that the requirements document becomes an immutable or semi-immutable reference that is not going to fall out of the context window of the agent. So you can have a number of things that you have asked an agent to do, like features that you wanted to add or changes that you wanted to make way back in the past, and because of this this moving context window, it may have forgotten, essentially. It may not even know that you asked it to implement a specific feature, and that feature exists in the code because it's part of the requirements. So by documenting what your requirements are.
Tinker001 said, the hardest, most important part of all coding, traditional or AI-based, is always documenting requirements.
Yeah, and being clear about them. That's right, Tinker. So there is a particular term, I'm sure Andy will chime in with it. There is a particular term, I think, for this type of coding, when you are writing these documents and then incorporating the documents into your project so that the AI is referring to them. Now, what I am going to do right now is not that. I am basically just going to go wild and see what we can do with this. Now, one thing that agentic coding systems are really good at is analyzing an existing code base and telling you things about it. So what we are going to do here is an experiment. I know that Mitch implemented an API. Let's see what this has got. All right, yeah, there is an API in this.
At Tinker001 said, this is gonna suck.
Probably. Okay, so SQLite, to answer Amanda's question from earlier. So SQLite is what I'm running on my local thing here. So I've got, where are we? You can see all the cache stuff, all the local files, which are not really part of the project. They're just generated because it's running right now. Where are we? Yeah, I'm not even sure where the files are in here. So API.py. Okay, so we can have a look in here. So this is a Django app, and you can see all of the stuff in here. So it uses an API key. Now let's have a very quick look through this first. Oh, there's a note in here. How do I get user IP address in Django? Okay, so this was all written by Mitch, and he's implemented these various API endpoints. For example, device, and then the device PK, which would be the serial number, I guess, and then add TR. So this is an API endpoint for adding tracking information for this particular record. And what have we got? Add image. Cool. So we've got an add image endpoint here. We've got a program. That program would be for when it was flashed. Device existing, device add. So we can add a device through this API. These will be for getting lists. So designs, clients, there's a test endpoint and there's a test endpoint with no auth. Because the API allows both authenticated and unauthenticated connections. There might be some things that we want to expose unauthenticated and some of them that we want to expose authenticated. So he set it up with both authenticated and unauthenticated endpoints. Okay, so we've had a very quick look here at Mitch's implementation of the API. So we can see, for example, this is the endpoint that we would call for doing that particular thing. And then new device is get object or 404, new DE device event. So there would be a function somewhere else here in the code, which is a device event. So that'll be implemented elsewhere. But at least we can see what the API is here. Okay, so now let's do our first little thing. Okay, I'm going to ask cursor, how am I going to put this? I could say create a markdown document that explains how to connect to the API. What will I say? I'll just say API and describes the available endpoints. Oops, hang on. What happened then? Did I lose focus? Available endpoints. So let's just see what happens. And how Claude is going to deal with this. So reviewing the API code, explore two files. All right, so we can see it's read api.py and models.py. api.py is the one that we were just looking at, which only describes the actual endpoints. It doesn't show the implementations of how these things happen, like adding a device event, etc. So what was the other file? Models.py. Okay, so in models.py, this is where there would be the functions. So you can see there is the device class here, and then we can see various methods that can be called on it, test records, etc. So this is probably where the implementation is. So I'm going to just close that, and let's see what Claude has come up with. Okay, so it's looked at those two files, checking schemas and URL configuration. So it is then creating API documentation. Okay, it's made a new document called api.md because I asked it to do it as a markdown file. It probably would have done it as a markdown file anyway, but anyway, so that is the start of the document. The actual document is over here on the right. So I created the API document in register api.md. It includes an overview, so it's just given me a little summary. So this is an executive summary of what it has done in the document. So overview, authentication, endpoint. Oh, okay. I didn't even ask it about authentication specifically, but I did ask it how to connect to the API. So that's good. It's listed the data, the endpoints, error handling, and examples. I didn't actually ask it to do examples either. But one thing that I've found just in general doing this sort of thing is that it tends to be very good at providing examples. And one thing that I've noticed is also interesting is, okay, so Andy pointed out, okay, it's called context engineering. So PRD, which is the product requirements document, spec workflow, spec kit, and spec story, capturing the history. Yeah, cool. So I want to learn a whole lot more about that at some point and actually try doing that for real rather than just going for broke like I am right now. So yeah, one thing I found is that it is very good at using its own initiative, and yes, I know initiative is a dangerous word to use in the context of AI, in in providing examples. When I've asked it to create code, I've been using Claude for working on code for I2C drivers, and it generally just creates examples. If you ask it to implement something, it'll say, here is the thing, and here is an example. So that's really nice. And that's just a description of what it's done. The document is ready to use. Should I add anything or make any changes? Well, let's have a look at the document first. And where are we? I'm actually going to open the document in, where are we? So it is in, this is the document here on the right, but I'm going to open it in a different editor just to be able to see. So it's in, where? I've got the folder open elsewhere. What's the path? PyProj. Where are we? Register, source, register. Okay. I need to move back out of there. API.md. I'm just going to open this in a Markdown editor because it makes it easier to read. And that's why we have Markdown editors. Okay, so that document that it just created, this is it here on the left. This is the original Markdown, and on the right is the rendered version of the Markdown, just in Markdown. So let's see, Claude. How well did you do? Okay, just a bit of a blurb. They're all prefixed with API v1. That's right, I'd forgotten about this. So one of the things that Mitch did when he was creating this API was include versioning, which is very important. When you're creating an API, you are controlling the version of the code that is on your running instance. But of course, you might have different versions of clients that are connecting to your API. And compatibility with different API versions is a big deal. So one thing that is generally a good practice is to have API versioning, so that when you receive a query from a client connecting to it, you understand what the client is expecting, and you can change your API and support newer versions and newer clients without breaking backward compatibility, because the version of the client is built right into the request. So, yep. So example.com API v1. Is that readable? I should probably zoom in on this. Does zooming work? Let's see. No. Maybe I can view. Is there a way I can format strong? No, window. Move and resize. No, that's just window related stuff. Maybe, what about preferences? Settings. Markdown, editor, rendering. Where is there a font? Can I change this?
At Tinker001 said, quite readable full screen at 1080p.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, Tinker. Maybe I won't bother with this. 14. Oh, I'll see if I take this up to 18 point. No, that just changed the editor window, not the rendering window. Let's change it back to 14 point and yeah, that's weird. The rendering, maybe it's, I don't know. Anyway, if it's readable, that's fine. Okay. So it uses API key authentication via HTTP headers, with the exception of the test endpoint. Yep, okay. So X API key or API key here in the request header. Okay, it's got IP restrictions as well. Now, this sort of thing, Claude seems to be doing really well with. It is, just at first glance, when I was reading through that API source file, I didn't see any references to IP restrictions. They may have been elsewhere in a different file, I'm not sure. But yeah, now that this has come up, it's reminded me that yes, Mitch did implement configuration. So it is configuration subnet as specified in API allow IPv4 subnet setting if configured. That is in the config file of the installation. It might be worth expanding the documentation here a little bit to say a bit more about that, like where to actually find that setting and how to edit it, but that can be something for a future improvement. Yeah, okay, so even if you've got a valid API key, other IPs will be rejected. Yep, associated with client objects, contact your administrator to obtain an API key. Okay, so that is, let me come back in here. No, I'm going to show you where that API key is managed. So if I go to admin, I'm just wondering what I'm going to reveal here. No, this should be fine. This one should be fine because this does not have other users and things in it. Now, if I go to users and I go to myself, ooh, I'm just going to check what it is going to reveal if I open that. Oh, okay, cool. Nothing bad. Yep, that's fine. I can show this. So I've got a password here and it's showing the algorithm and the salt and the hash, etc. It's not actually showing the whole thing, so it's not revealing too much. Preferred name, full name, available groups, clients. Okay, I'm going to come into Superhouse and API key. This is where it is. Okay, so what I don't know is what format this API key should be. It's probably just like a random string, but presumably there will be some limitations on that API key. So expanding that documentation in the future would be useful. Nope, not that. I want to go to that. Okay. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So we can experiment with that. Let's do that. No, not that. I want that. Email. Okay, device register, localhost. I'm going to go to 127.0.0.1, even though it is technically the same thing as localhost, because I'm already authenticated against that host. So, hang on, why did that not work? Okay, I'm going to go to there, 127.0.0.1. Yeah, okay. So, API docs. So we have a number of schemas defined here, and ID, etc., etc. Okay, so we can do a test endpoint no auth, and we can, yeah, so there's an example value message, okay, try it out, and no parameters, execute. Okay, so it has run this to connect to the endpoint. That was the URL that it requested. We got a success response. There's a whole lot of info there. Hasn't revealed a key? Nope, good. Okay, so we have this API endpoint test interface to use. That's handy. All right. I know Mitch has shown me that in the past, but I'm partly acting here as if I've never seen this before. I have actually seen a fair bit of this before. I'm just pretending that I'm using Claude to investigate this and then and document it and then extend it, because I want to add something to it in just a moment. So we got test endpoints documented here and design endpoints. So it's got an example response, query parameters, yep, cool. Oh, and PK is primary key. So filtered designs by client primary key. So client PK and the device PK was what I said earlier was the serial number. because that is what is used as the primary key on the device. So we could do a get device using get API v1 device and then the device ID, which would return a bunch of stuff. Okay, error handling. User standard status codes, cool. Test result values, okay, examples. Get the key, get available designs, etc. Python example. Import requests. Nice. Okay. Well, I think that's probably a reasonable start to a document describing this. So let's just... Johnny says, I was looking at the channel image and it's some dude with hair. Can't be me. No, it can't be me. Okay, so let's click on Keep File. So now we have an API.md file in the project, and we have a start of some documentation, which could be improved a little, but I think using Claude to generate this, like the time it would have taken me to, and most of this time has just been me talking, the time it would have taken me to write that documentation, and of course there would be potential human errors involved and that sort of thing. I might miss certain things. It discovered things about it, like the versioning. It discovered the IP restrictions and explained it and where the configuration is. Using Claude for this sort of thing is incredibly useful. It helps you deal with a code base that you may not necessarily understand initially. It might be one that you are trying to get to grips with, and it'll go through and figure things out much faster than most humans could. So, MJ O'Connor says, I always use OpenAPI in Python, and I've been asking ChatGPT to create my CRUD API and the documentation API, and it works well. Yes. Okay, so we now have a document, which is a good start. So now let's do something a little bit more ambitious. How am I going to handle this? Okay, so I've already got an API. In fact, let's I'm just going to, I could look at this documentation. I'm going to fall back to using Claude to tell me something. I'm going to be treating this as if it's a helper or a programmer who is working on this project who can answer questions for me. So I can say, explain what happens when an image is uploaded via the API for a specific device. Okay, because what I want to do now is have the code that does, I want to create code that is going to look at an image and then push it up using the API and add it to the system. All right. What has it told us? I'm going to skip over its explanation of what it's doing. So they're uploaded via this particular API endpoint as a post, which is what you would expect. They're associated with a test record, not directly with the device. Okay. This is where some things have deviated a little. Okay, we need to extend this API because the concept when Mitch and I were talking about this early on was that you would have a test record, and that test record might contain multiple pieces of information. So the test record, you can think of it kind of like a folder. It encapsulates various other things. Those things will include the outcome of tests, such as if you have run an ADC calibration and you get cal values coming back, it might incorporate that information. It might incorporate photos of the device. It could incorporate thermal images, all sorts of different things. Response codes when you, or voltages that it reads. Like say you're reading the 3.3 volt rail to verify that it is within spec. So you read that voltage back, you've now got a number that you want to store. So you've got data that you want to store against a test record. So a test record in this context is a collection of information including images. However, there might be things that you want to store against the device which are not within the context of a test record. And all of the early design work that was done on this system was on the, I was going to say assumption, but that is not the correct word. It was on the understanding that the information that was stored would be in the context of a test record. That's no longer the case. There can be things that are outside of the context of test records. There could be images. And in fact, the image that I uploaded, so when we go to, do I still have it open? No, let's come back to here. And if I go to 5, 6, 7, 8, this image that was uploaded, this is not associated with a test record. You can see there is a test log here. This is a test record. This is an image that has just been stored in a folder. So what I need to be able to do is modify the API, because when Mitch created this API, the concept of adding an image outside of a test record didn't exist. Oh, Andy says, maybe start by asking Claude Code to write a simple test for the next piece of functionality you'll ask it to create. Yes. Okay. Let's see if we can do that. So, coming back to here. Okay. This is all preempting the next step. So it does it in the context of a test record. So prerequisites, a test record must exist for the device. And this is not necessarily true in the case of just uploading an image that is outside of a test record. So we need the test record's primary key. And that complicates the process. So the first thing that you do is you get a test record primary key, and then you do a request to the add image. The add image endpoint, and it gets processed. All right, so it looks up the test record to verify that you have not given it a bogus number, because you could be passing in a primary key that doesn't even exist. So it needs to check whether it exists, and it then creates a test image object and then saves it. Okay, so it's stored in media test images, which is not where the images, so this image is not stored in test images. This image is stored in the path media / and then the serial number. There's a folder of the serial number of the device or the board, and then inside that is the image. So we've got test images and then media. Image field handles the file upload. File name is generated automatically, typically preserving that, adding a suffix if needed, etc. Okay, so it stores there, and then it creates a database record and adds a foreign key to the test record, which links to the device. It's response, complete workflow example. Okay, so this is all interesting, but it shows that we now need a different so Grant says, also sounds like you would probably need to change the DB schema if you are changing the relationships. And Stephen says, not necessarily a new image, but an additional one. Grant says, shouldn't an image related to a test record relate to a test record after rework? You would want a new image. Okay, so this is all very interesting discussion. This is all around the concept of what are these images actually representing. So do you want them in the context of a test record, Or do you want them simply like a loose extra piece of information related to the board? And the answer is that both of those things are valid. Having the ability to add images, add arbitrary images like this, outside of the context of a test record does not invalidate also having images in the context of a test record. So I'm not saying that having images in a text record is wrong. That's not the case. What I'm saying is that there might also be situations where you want to add an image that is not associated with the test record, because this test record might be running a test, might be sending some commands to a device and then measuring voltages, or sending voltages to a device and then measuring other voltages, or comms via a console or something. Doesn't really matter. And you might have an image associated with that. But you might also have a situation, for example, where you just want to add an image because you've done some rework, and or you just took an extra photo, or the client might have a request like, please take a photo specifically of each board of a particular connector. Just, I don't know, I'm just making up reasons here. But I want to be able to add arbitrary photos to a board without it being in the context of a test record. So, and in fact, I want to restructure this a fair bit. What you can see here is a section called events, and then you can see a section called test log, and there might be multiple tests that were executed. Perhaps it failed on its first test, and then the board was reworked, and then it was tested again, and then it has a pass. So you might want to see the fail event, and then the rework, and then the test, and then the passing test. So we've got a section there for the test log. Then we've got a section for images. Now the way this works, if we ignore the top section, the summary, the way this works with events, test logs, and images is that they are three distinct sections on the page here. And personally, I want to change this. I want to make it so that it is essentially a timeline, and a test might be executed within the timeline, but it shouldn't be in a separate section. So we've got events like firmware, that firmware version. We've got a shipping event. What I would prefer to see is simply a timeline in chronological order, and that timeline might include this particular test was executed, this photo was taken, this was the shipping event, whatever the things are that get done to the board. I want to be able to glance down it. At the moment, it's kind of a mishmash. Like you look at the events and the test log. So this test was executed on the 4th of December. And this was, oh yeah, that's right. I was saying earlier, these dates are wrong. So this is a bad example to be using. But you might have a firmware version here on the events, and then down here you have a test that was executed, and then back up here you have the shipping event. So it's showing it out of order. It's grouped by events, test logs, and then images, but I want it to be in order. That's what I was trying to say in a very roundabout way. Oh, I need to finish my coffee. So I want to restructure this user interface and merge all of these things together so that there is a timeline, and it doesn't matter whether it's an event record, a test log, or an image, it will be displayed in the timeline consecutively. And these events could be just arbitrary other notes, like I could add a note here like applied glue to caps. I don't know, something like that. And now we've got a note. So we've got a firmware event, a shipping event, and a note. Yeah, so I want this to be like the timeline. So I now need an API endpoint for adding an image that is not within the context of the test record. Ah, yes, and Grant said if you have them all in order, it might be nice to filter toggles at the top. Yeah, that's a good point. That would be really nice. So if we've got a timeline here, it should be possible. In fact, what I'm going to do is GLC. So I should explain that part of the inspiration for this, if I go into, I'm just going to log into JLC and find something sanitized that I can show you. I'm going to find an order that is safe to show. Safe to show. This one should do. Yeah, why not? Okay, production progress. So in JLC, if we come into here, there is this production progress link. Now, this is a test pin carrier board right here. So this is one that I've actually shown. The TM mod test carrier. And if I click on production progress, you will see that it brings up this timeline. And this is the sequence of things that happens to it. It's got an estimated finish time. Now this is a complete, I don't actually have any jobs that are in progress right now, which is very unusual. I normally do, I think I average about 2 JLC orders a week. So at any one point in time, I typically have at least 1 and often 2 orders that are in progress at different points. But you can see MI is manual inspection. So we've got the sequence from top to bottom here. This is like a checklist of things that happens when the bare PCB is being manufactured. And when you are in progress, what you will see is this complete sequence with all of the steps, and it has a tick next to the ones that have been done. And you'll see it progressing from top to bottom as it works its way through. And you can see the timestamp of when that particular thing was completed. What I want to achieve is, and there's a little explanation video of what happens on the inner layer part of the process. So what I want to do ultimately is have something similar to this, but it can't be quite the same because on here we have a number of steps, and these steps are very well defined. When you begin production of a PCB, you know that these, 18 steps or whatever it is, are the same steps that you are going to go through. So you can have this as a checklist, and you might only be at step 3, inner layer automated optical inspection, but you know that the next step is going to be lamination, followed by drilling, followed by copper deposition. Now, for my process, it is slightly more free-form than that. But my ultimate goal is that I want to give my customers the ability to pull up the record for a board that is in progress right now and see how far progressed it is. I want them to be able to see, for example, so the list is going to be totally different because I'm not making bare PCBs, but it could be similar, like making stuff up. The first item could be bare PCBs in stock. So, okay, we've received the bare PCBs, because when a customer places an order, I may not have PCBs ready. I might have to actually order them and then wait a week. So we might be at the first stage of waiting for bare PCBs to arrive. And then when they arrive, I want to mark that off, and so they can see on their little order progress dashboard, yes, the PCBs have arrived, tick. And then and also one might be kitting up. So do we have all of the parts in stock? Tick, yes, we have kitted up. And then there will be various stages. So I'm not necessarily going to reveal this level of detail to the customers, But it would be really nice to be able to reveal, for example, this board has just been solder pasted, and now it has gone through pick and place, and now it has gone through reflow. Now typically that process might span, for one board, from the time that it goes onto the solder stencil machine to the time it comes out of the reflow oven, that might be 10 minutes. Or, you know, it might be 20 minutes. It could be an hour, in that sort of thing. It'll be in that sort of scale. It's not over multiple days, and it is a fairly short event. So the showing that sort of granularity in here might be too much. But I do want to show, for example, oh, the board has been through pick and place and reflow, so it has now had all of its surface mount parts added to it, but it has not yet had the through-hole parts added. So then I want to have another thing, which is like through-hole assembly. Tick. Oh, that board has now had through-hole assembly. And then the next thing is it goes onto the tester and then have the test results. And then it has photos taken, then you have the photo results. So that's the general concept of the timeline that I want to be revealing when people are looking at this. I want it to be that feeling of I am watching my boards progressing and getting closer to the end point of, hey, they've shipped. And now I can click on the tracking number and I can see when they're going to arrive. That's what I'm working on. Jackstack said you need a batch status then. Yes, yes. Oh, and as Andy said, this is just like the Chinese factory live dashboards they have internally, e.g. Seed Studios. Yes. So Andy and I visited the Seed Studios. This is many years ago now. We visited Video's production line together, and on a trip to China. And one of the things that was really interesting to see was they had a big thing like a 42-inch LCD TV tipped up so it was in portrait mode, and it was showing the status of their different batches. So it was you could glance at it and see, oh, this particular batch has now been through pick and place. This next batch is coming up. We want to build 100 of this particular board. And then the batch after that is going to be this. So you could see this status screen on the wall and where each of these batches of boards was up to. That is one of the many pieces of inspiration that has led to all of this. So all of this stuff that I'm working on, I'm not inventing any of this. This is seeing how other people have done things and learning from it and then trying to implement it for my own purposes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sion. Oh, no, that was a different trip. No, on that particular trip that I went on with you, Sion wasn't on that trip. We were on different trips. Yeah, someone's job was on the screen. Yeah, I don't remember. Okay, now back to what we want. So, back to Claude. Okay, so it has now given me an analysis of what happens with the image upload endpoint of the API. And what this has revealed is that it is not what I want. This would be fine if I was going to be adding images to a test record, but what I want to do is add these arbitrary images which are simply associated with a board. They're not associated with a test record. And we don't have an endpoint to do that right now. Now, what I don't like, okay, this is where some thinking needs to be done. What I don't like is the fact that this is called add image. What would be much nicer is if this was called add tr image, so that we could then use the add image endpoint for just adding a general image. But we can get around that. Okay, so here are my thought processes. I could either rename this endpoint and make it something like add tr image and increment the API version, or I could come up with a different name for the endpoint for adding an image for just the board. And the thing is that there might be other images that we want to add. There might be, later we might want to do things like adding an image for a company. Like we might want to be able to programmatically upload a logo for a company. Once again, just making stuff up. So this is in the context of a device. So we have an endpoint called add image in the context of a device. We could have an add image in the context of an organization or a client in the terminology of the data structure. So John says, would you not always add a general image and then tag it as a test record image? Yeah, that is actually the way I would prefer this to happen, potentially. But this is the evolution of this system that has happened over time. We started with the concept that everything would be done in the context of a test record, and my thinking has changed. So now I want to be able to add images in different contexts. So what I think I might do is have a new endpoint, which once again, it is going to have to be in the context of a device because this is an image that is being added for the device. But instead of the test record primary key, it is going, which is a key that's like a foreign key to the device ID or the device primary key. I would have the device primary key in here and then add device image, perhaps as the endpoint. So let's see what happens. Let's see if we can get Claude to do this for us. All right, I got to think this prompt through. How are we going to instruct Claude to do this? I'm going to say add a new API endpoint called add device image, which allows an image to be uploaded and stored. Okay, so this is the tricky bit, is how to explain where I want it to be stored. Uploaded and stored. Okay, I'm going to say in a similar way to the manual file upload. So this is going to be a test of whether it is going to take into consideration the functionality that was added for this manual upload. Because I've got this thing here, which is upload, the upload form that we just did before. So this is the image add endpoint device. This is kind of misleading as well. Oh, I don't like this. This is tech debt that is going to nag at me. You can see that this upload endpoint is device 5678 image add, and this is using the serial, but we can't use image add because that is used for adding an image associated with an endpoint. Ooh, refactoring may be required here. Okay. Jack's Tech said, is there a point at which a device might be without a primary key, or is there a chance it gets stickered with the wrong serial? Okay, so there are two parts there. And then that was following on from when in the flow does the device get its serial? Okay, the device gets its serial when the record for the device is added to the database. So you cannot have a device in the database without its serial. You don't add a record for a board and then add a serial to it. The serial is the primary key. Yeah, so it is guaranteed to always be there. You can't add a device without it. So we've, okay, so to your other point, is there a chance to get stickered with the wrong serial? That is hard. What that, well, kind of by definition, the sticker is what assigns the serial to the board. I get the point of what you're asking, but without the sticker on it, the board has no serial. There is no other mechanism for associating a serial with a board, unless you were doing something like using the MAC address of a microcontroller. But that is a secondary key. That is not. That's an attribute. It's not a key, really. So it's an interesting question. I don't think it's going to be a problem. The only way it could be a problem is if you put identical stickers on two boards. So you had two physical boards with the same serial number sticker on them, which could happen. But yeah, if that did happen, there would be no other way to differentiate between the boards. So it's kind of that is a cataclysmic failure. It's a system failure that would be really bad. And I don't know how you would disambiguate them. Okay, so add a new API endpoint called add_device_image, which allows an image to be uploaded and stored in a similar way to the manual file upload of an image. Which is done through the web interface. Okay, the upload should be authenticated. I'm just wondering if I should explain a little bit more about this. Cable Tie says, oh, we're vibe coding? Yes. Cable Tie! Happy New Year, Cable Tie. Tinker says, definitely need a tiny laser etching system and QR space on your boards. Then you could etch them as they're assembled. Yeah, that has been a whole topic of conversation. Okay, yeah, and as someone, who was it? Someone, might have been Tinker? I can't remember. Messaged me on Discord after last week's stream and said that if you use the Chinese interface for JLC PCB, you can have a prefix, including a URL, on the QR code that they put on the board. Yeah, so that actually does what I want it to do. Last week I was showing that it's impossible to generate a unique URL with the serial number using JLC's serial number system. And it is impossible in the English language interface, but in the Chinese interface, you can. Which is, oh, it wasn't you, Tinker. Someone sent me a message. I can't remember who. Okay, so the upload should be authenticated. What I'm just debating here is, do I need to specify that it should be authenticated so that only the key related to the company associated with that board can do the upload? But, yes, as Andy says, turns out the most critical manufacturing error and failure isn't missing or tombstone parts or bad solder joints. The most critical failure is attaching the wrong serial sticker. Yeah. Oh, and there has been a whole conversation with Austin during the week about automated sticker application machines too. Hang on, got a cough. And you can get feeders. You can get pick and place machine feeders, including Yamaha CL compatible feeders, that will feed stickers so that your pick and place machine can pick up the stickers and put them down. But let's not chase that squirrel right now. Okay, the upload should be authenticated. Add an API endpoint called add_device_image, which allows an image to be uploaded and stored in a way. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is get it to rename the other upload to make it consistent, because otherwise it is going to break my brain later. Oh, and he said, presumably the serial number sticker barcode has error detecting and correcting code. Yes, it does. I use two different formats. So for, now, do I get into this right now? No, I won't. I won't. Short summary is yes. If I use either a code 39 barcode with just the serial number, which has a checksum, and I use a QR code with error, which has, you can have different levels of error correction. Okay, that's, I won't get into that. But yeah, when you create a QR code, you can specify the level of error checking that is done, like how many bits of parity are used, etc. So yes, it does have it. The upload should be authenticated. Okay, so okay, I'm going to leave that without specifying that it should be the authentication. No, I'm going to specify it such that the API key must be valid for the client associated with that specific device. Okay, and that is so that you might have a valid API key because you are one client, and I don't want that client to be able to push images to serials associated with boards from a different client. What else do I need to do? Add a new API, similar way to the, yeah, okay. Hopefully what this means is that it's going to put it into the same directory on the machine as the manual file upload. I'm just going to do this and let's see what happens. Okay, so it's reviewing how device images are handled in the web interface to mirror that behavior in the new API endpoint. Nice. So I want an API version of this. And later, what I'm going to do is modify this so that the URL is no longer image add. It is going to be image, what did I tell it to use? Add device image. Yep, I'm going to change it to that. So what do we have? What do we have? It's going to take me a while to catch up to what Claude has done. API documentation. Okay, so it is modifying the API documentation. Let's have a look at what it's done. Down here, router.post. Oh, is that API documentation? Oh no, that's API.py. Where is, oh, API.md. Why hasn't it opened it? That's odd. Oh, it's still going. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right. We'll look back at that in a moment. Okay, so it's, oh no, did I scroll back too far? I think I did. I did. I scrolled way too far. Okay. Device form schema. Where are we? Or did I? Yeah. Okay. I did scroll too far. New endpoint, adding necessary schema. Okay, so adding a schema and implementing endpoint image URL, schemas.py, device image response schema, image.
At Tinker001 said, it is open. You have 3 open documents.
Oh, it is now. Yeah, it has opened it because it's now finished, but it wasn't open a second ago when I was looking for it. It was still in the process of doing it. So redress API. Okay, so now we've got device primary key. Cool. So we need to know a primary key. We've got add device image response schema. Yep. Add device image, file upload. Upload device image API key must belong to the client associated with the device. Okay. So we've got image form schema. What has it changed there? File, uploaded file, notes, device image form schema. Okay. And we'll look at the actual change in just a second. I'm just reading through the sequence of what it did. Uploaded device image. So we've got file, device image. This is in the markdown change. Okay, check to-do list. So we have a new API endpoint device, and then the primary key, add device image. That's exactly what I wanted. That's what I asked it to do. Optional notes field. Oh, nice. Okay. I forgot to actually specify that, but because there is a notes field which is stored in the database. So the image itself is stored just on the file system of the register, but the information about it, about that file, is stored in the database, including the notes. So that's why when we are here, if we come back to this, let's just edit this, my test note, and then save that. So that information about this is stored in the database. So we can attach notes to images. Cool. I didn't tell it to do it, but it figured it out. Okay, so what are we doing? Accepts the upload, optional notes field, extracts the date time from the file name if it matches the pattern. Yep, okay, this is good. This is good. Because what I do at the moment is pre-process the image and format it in this way. That's what that Python script that we looked at right near the start does. So client authentication verifies it's valid, matches the device's client, returns 403, denied. File storage, so it stores it in media, device images, device ID, file name. Uses the same upload path function as the web interface. Good. Okay, so it is putting it in the same place. Sorry, when I was talking earlier about, okay, I'm gonna, PyProj, where are we? Media, device images. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna show you here on my file system. This is my local file system for this thing that we are looking at. So you can see that we've got a media folder, and then we've got device images, and then inside device images we have a folder for each of these primary keys. And you can see that I've only uploaded images against 3 of the records, so it's created those folders. So 5, 6, 7, 8 is this one that we've been looking at, and you can see that there is the image, and this is it stored on disk. So if I open that just in preview, you can see the image that's stored on disk. So that's good. So what it's going to do is put the image uploaded by the API into that same path. So it doesn't matter if the image gets there through the manual upload through the web interface or through the API pushing it there. The end result is the same thing, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so documentation, updated API.md, endpoint mirrors the web interface behavior and enforces client-based access control. Okay, very nice. Now, let's have a look at the actual things that it did. Let's check this code. All right, so we've got device event, device image, test image. So we've got a new model here, which is device image. That's fine. And what else was up here? Import date time. I wonder why it needed to do that. Oh, okay, okay. No, what actually surprises me here is that this was not there previously. Why was it not needed before? Oh well. Yeah, so I could imagine it needing that for dealing with the date on the image, but it should be dealing with dates on other things as well. So anyway, device image form schema, device image response schema. Yep, so those are the two new schemas that it added. Okay, so router post. Let's have a look at what this is doing. So we've got device, then the primary key, add device image, and we are defining what is how this is handled. So we've got the request auth, and if we don't have an API key, it is saying you're not authenticated. All right, so now this is the check to make sure that the key that was used, so it might have got past this point, it might be valid, but associated with a different client. So we're doing client.objects.get API key. So we are checking whether it is a valid key and then getting the device and then checking whether it is valid, that key is valid for that device. So that's good. All right, and denying if it's not. David said, it's the start of the stream, isn't it? I haven't missed anything, have I? No, we haven't missed anything. Yeah, as Tinker said, you specifically told it to do this in a similar way to the existing API endpoint, which included an optional note. Yes. So, yeah, that's right. I did say to do it in the same way, but what I was saying was to do the file upload in the same way as is done through the web form. So it was implied, it wasn't explicit, and I am happy that it took the implication and ran with it. I could have added something if I just wanted to upload images and not have something like a note associated with it. I could have specifically said do not include the note functionality in the API, but yeah, I'm happy that it figured out that it should. All right, so we've got a check against the thing. All right, extract date time if it matches the pattern. File name DT is none, so we start with nothing. So for blah, file name split blah, name without extension, split that, oh, rsplit, okay. I was just going to say that seems a bit dubious, just splitting on a dot, because you might have multiple dots in the file name, but it's doing an rsplit, which means it's going to take the final dot as the extension. Yep, okay, that's cool. So it's looking for this particular pattern, and this is correct. I actually validated this a couple of days ago, because when I was doing the web upload, it had to do a similar thing. It had to parse the file name and extract the serial and the date out of it, because the thing is that the photo might be taken at one point in time. It may not be uploaded for some period of time. It depends on when it's handled. So we can't rely. What I want in the chronology of the timeline of what is being shown is for the photo to be shown in the timeline at the point at which it was taken, not at the point at which it was added to the register. Now, there is also metadata that you can extract from images. In this particular case, what we're doing is we're using the file name to extract the image using this regex. Sorry, the file name to extract the date using this regex. So we've got a match equals regular expression match, RE match. But you could also do things like look at the file metadata if it's an image, it'll have data about, typically about things like the date. It may have the device, like the camera type. It could have exposure information. It could have GPS information. There's a whole lot of stuff that could be in there. So it's possible that we could extract it that way as well. In this implementation though, I'm just doing it off the file name. Okay, so it's doing integer matches off each of those elements. So year, month, day, and then hour, minute, second that it's extracted using the regular expression. And then validating the date and time values. This is nice. I didn't actually ask it to validate the date, but it's doing it, which is cool. So it's checking whether it is a whether those are valid ranges. So the parsed date time is that, so it's putting it back together again. Time zone parsed. Yep, okay. So device image, device.device image file notes, and it is so the image date time, or image DT, is the file name DT, which is the date time extracted from the file name, if it is set. So if it has managed to extract
when
it.
Apple changes the file name format of your photos, the whole works will balk.
Potentially, yeah. But this is not actually Apple's format. This is my format. By the time the images get to here, they've already been processed by me and renamed, which is why they have the serial number in the name and everything. So I've got a preprocessor which handles all of these images, which is the one that does the bounding box and crops, etc. So that script could break, but then that's just one place to fix. By the time it gets to here, the image should be in the correct format. So yeah, there is more that could be done here, like extracting from the metadata, because if someone just takes a photo of a board and then uploads it, or a photo is uploaded in a different way and it doesn't have the date time in the name, it will just fall back to using now. So it'll be the point at which it is uploaded. All right, so save image and return image URL, device image, pk with the primary key, device image.pk. Okay, that seems sensible so far. Yeah, okay. Now let's have a look at the schemas. So the schema, we've added the device image form schema and the device image response schema. Not a whole lot to that. We've just got the notes thing, which is a string. We've got the image URL, which is a string, and we've got an integer as the primary key. That all seems pretty sensible. I'm happy to mark that as keep. And yeah, so we've looked at this, and we've looked at this. So what are the changes in the documentation? Scroll down here. We now have this endpoint uses multi-part blah. Okay, device image endpoints. Add device image. So that's device primary key. Upload an image directly associated with the device. If it matches the pattern blah, e.g. that, then it does that. Path parameters, request body. So we've got the file, the actual binary file, and the notes. That's good. We've got a response. It responds with the path, which is what we just saw. So back in here, if we look at the bottom of this change, we can see what it's returning is the device image, etc. All of this stuff here. So the device image URL, and we've got the primary key there. So it is returning the device image URL, yeah, and the primary key. Cool. So the documentation matches what it seems to actually be doing. These are response codes, examples. Okay, upload image with notes using bash. So this is just using curl. That's cool. That means that we could do a quick test. Wow, I'm already nearly an hour over. I'm heading towards 3 hours. Okay, upload image without notes, upload image with date, time in file name. Okay, uses multi-part form data, not application JSON. The file must be sent as form data. Okay, that's all right. Must associate with the client's device. If it matches that, it does all of that. Okay, so that seems sensible. Okay, so we've got a new endpoint. So we've got a test image associated with a test record, and we've got a device image associated with the device. Yep, that seems fine. Upload device image. So we're with open device image.jpg. Device 1 2 3 4 5. Add blah print response JSON. Add a test record. Upload a test image. Okay.
Hugh Gilligan's Island theme song.
Well, there is a whole there is a whole conversation going on about terms of service and copyright and training data and machine learning and stuff. All right, I'm not going to engage with that. You can chat about it among yourselves. All right, so we've got a Python example. Yeah, okay. Device image endpoints. Yeah, that was the thing we looked at before. Mark that as keep. Review next file. So this is, what are we looking at here? This is the post. Oh no, we looked at this already. Yeah, we looked at that. Mark that as keep. All right. So we've examined all of the code that it has added. Now let's see if we can make it work. All right. Where are we going to go? Do I even have... I'm not even sure if it's on my Mac. Let's see. Should be. Yes, it is. Okay. Sorry, I was just looking for curl. So, okay, what I'm going to do is find another device. Let's see, we'll find, well, we could do this one. We could do this one. We could just upload the same image again. That doesn't matter. In fact, that would be a good test because it should discover that it has the same file name. Yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. So 5, 6, 7, 8.
3, 2, 1, bork.
Yep, it is going to die. This has to explode. It has to explode. All right, now I'm going to go to image backups, processed images. I'm going to upload the same processed image. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Sorry, I'm fuddling around here because I'm figuring out the best way to actually do this. Let's start by going into, I'm just going to make this bigger, source register. No, it's not there. It's not there. It is... Oh, no, I need to pass the path to it. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to go to Dropbox, Superhouse, Testomatic, processed images. That'll do. So the image I want to upload is 5, 6, 7, 8. That one. This image, which is serial number 5, 6, 7, 8, taken on that date, is actually this image. You can see 4th of December 2025. Here we've got 4th of December 2025. It's the same image. It's just that I uploaded this manually through the web interface. Now I want to do it using curl connecting to the API. All right, so the first step is I need to give myself, ooh, okay, so I'm going to have to associate this. All right, I'm going to do something different because of complications around the fact that that is not a superhouse thing, it's a T-Rex thing. So I'm going to go to, let's have a look at serial number 1. What is serial number 1? No, I think serial number 2 was a superhouse device. Yeah, it is. Okay, superhouse, IO, breakout, etc. There is no image associated with this. So, but it is in the superhouse organization. So I'm going to go to admin and clients and superhouse and add an API key. I don't know what form the API key should be, so I am just going to, I have just used pwgen. I need to add this into the documentation. Okay, that and that. Okay, so the client superhouse now has this as an API key. Cool. Now if I go back to here, and I'm going to go to serial number 2. I now want to upload an image. I'm going to upload the image of the MCM, so it's going to be the wrong device, but it doesn't matter. Against this record, and I should be able to do it using that API key that I just added. Now, where is, and I want to do it here. So, back to Markdown. Does it remember open recent? No, it doesn't. Ah, that's annoying. All right, I'm lost. I'm trying to find stuff. It's all a big mess. I need to find, oh, it's in here. I'll just look at it in Claude. Okay, so if I go to api.md and I go down to find the device upload, where was it? Program device, nope. It was further down, it was down here somewhere. Upload an image associated with a test record. We wanted to upload an image directly associated with the device. Now, what was its example? It was using curl and using that format. So, upload an image without a device, upload an image with date, time, -f file. Yeah, it's going to be like that. So I want to, I'm going to mess around with this example. Okay, so API key. Where did I put it? There it is. I'll get that back in my clipboard. I'm going to stick that API key back in. Oh wait, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted, yeah, that. That and the file is going to be, it is going to be where? That one. And I want to stick it to 127.0.0.1 port 8000. API v1 device, and I want it to be device 2. Add device image. File is that. What is going to go on with SSL? I don't know. Let's see. Let's find out. All right, so I'm going to now, I'm in the folder that file is in. Let's just run it and see what happens. It may explode. Wrong version number. SSL. Okay, let's just try doing it without SSL. And, there. See what happens. Okay. This is because I am not running SSL on my local dev environment. This is just like a loopback thing. Okay, so we've got a response saying media device images. It's gone into a folder called 2, which we saw before did not exist. There were folders for 3 devices and 2 was not one of them. So it's got that. It's got a primary key of 8. That is, okay, so that would be the primary key for the image, I think, because there aren't many images in the system yet. Hopefully that all worked. Let's find out. Let's go back to here. So we are now on device 2, and as you can see, there is no image. I'm just going to hit reload. Oh, there's an image. It worked. Amazing. That is so cool. Okay, and you can see the date on the image is 4th of December 2025, which it extracted from the file name. And let's try doing this with a note. So where is, oh yeah, so -f notes. So we can add that as an argument to it. Let's edit, let's come back to here, and we're going to add another thing on here, and we'll say the note is going to be this note was added via the API, and I'll get rid of the HTTPS on here. So what this should do is upload the same image again, but this time with a note associated with it. We should get a primary key of 9, but it should be stored in the same folder. And also, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because this is the same file with the same file name being uploaded a second time. The system should add a suffix. So let's, there are so many ways this could go wrong. No, not that. I want to copy that. Yeah, there are so many ways this could break right now, so this is going to be an interesting test. Okay, so we've got a primary key of 9, and we got, so it has stored it in the same folder in device images. The start of the name is the same, but it has added this extension, so it's added a hash or something on the end. I'm not actually sure how that's being generated, where it's coming from, like what method it's using. It's not just incrementing a serial number as a suffix, it's doing something else. We could ask Claude to explain that to us, but now let's see what happens if we go into the user interface and reload. We should have 2 images, and we do, and the second one says this note was added via the API. We can click on it, see the full size image, scroll around on it, inspect the board. Nice, 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 nice. Well, that feels like a little achievement. AI encoded bad words. Yeah, that's what the extension is. The file name is visible here if we click on it, because we're just opening the image directly. It's not like a light box or anything. So we can see the
AI
thing there.
encoded bad words.
Yeah, AI encoded bad words. Folders for 3 devices, 2 is not one of them. It should be on what stage? Okay. Stephen says, at some point John is going to work out he's hungry and needs to eat. Yeah, I am hungry, but I'm also making progress. So we now have a working API that allows us to upload images. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about how to encapsulate these changes, like in terms of commits. All right, not processed images. I want. Where's a shell? Is this a shell? Yes, it is. It is. And it's even in the correct directory. So I'm going to bring another shell up here, and then we're going to have a bit more zoomage. Get the zoomies just like a happy puppy dog, and have a look at what's going on here. All right, so we've got the API documentation, and I'm going to do that as a second commit, and then we have the change to the API. So what we've got is we're now using regular expressions. So we've got import RE, we've got date time, we've got new schemas. This is all the stuff that we saw before. We've already seen these changes. I'm not going to go through all of the details of that because we've already examined it. So git add pyproj, git commit, added API endpoint to upload an image associated with a device. Yeah, that'll do. And API added documentation of the reason I did this second as a separate commit, even though we created this first, is that it incorporated the changes for that new endpoint. Added documentation of API. Okay, cool. Can't type. Okay, so that is now squirted up to GitHub. Oh, what else do we want to do today? I hope Crispian has gone to bed. Because he said earlier that he'd had 1.5 hours sleep and he was just holding on for the start of the stream. And then after the stream, he would be putting his phone on Do Not Disturb and going to bed. And here we are, 3 hours and 8 minutes later, and I'm still going. I should try to drag the stream on and test how long Crispian can go without sleep. All right. So we now have the API working, and we've demonstrated using just using curl that we can upload to it. Now the logical next thing, 1 hour and 3 minutes sleep. And you're still here. You're still in the chat. What's going on? So you're feeling it now. You do have my permission to leave. So what we've got is a working API which we can call off the command line using curl, but we do not have a client. So the logical thing to do now is to add, there are two different ways to approach this. We can either incorporate this upload functionality into the processing script that I showed you when I say a moment ago, it was like 2 hours ago, into the script that does the cropping and extracts the serial, etc., and then stores the image. That could also connect to this API and then push the images up. Or we could have that as a first pre-processing step, and then once the images end up in that directory and they've been cropped and everything else done to them, they could then be processed and pushed up without any modification. My inclination is to do that as two separate stages. So have the first stage, at least for now, because right now I have a directory with thousands of images in it that have already been processed. And Crispian says, I'm a nut, a loyal nut. Yeah, you are very loyal. What? Stephen just says, just bought 2 H2D Pro printers and 100 spools of filament. All for you? That's just greedy. Yeah, have fun. Have fun printing the world. So, okay. Ultimately,
And Amanda_RFT said, what is the longest stream you have done on this channel? You should try to beat it.
no, I don't really want to try to beat it because I really am hungry, and I'm sure many other people are hungry too. I want to stop this soon. I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to write any more code. When I say Claude wrote it all for me. I didn't write a single line of that code. All of that was added by Claude. Where is GitHub register there? So at the moment this is a private repo. But at some point very, very soon this really needs to be exposed to the public. It started off as a private repo when Mitch was working on it, and we just wanted to have something that we could work on ourselves internally. But it's getting to the point now where I do want other people to be able to see this and maybe even start deploying it. So I just recently, well, you can see 18 hours ago, I added a setup document. So this document describes how how to set it up. This is my local Mac setup, and you can see it's it's got my actual paths and things in it, how to set up the VN. If you follow the bouncing ball here and then you substitute things like your own paths, this will get you to a fully working system. Like this this setup document will get you to the point of having this running, not with the data in it, but just the empty shell with all of this stuff, including chart generation, etc., even though you won't have any data. So if people wanted to mess around with this, they could, and I do want to make this repo public at some point fairly soon. In fact, okay, I want to make this repo public before I do the talk at Everything Open. So sometime in the next couple of weeks, this is going to go public. Where are we? Code and commits. Yeah, 195 commits. So these last 2 commits that we've just added in here, whoops, let's go to that. These were all done by Claude. Bye-bye. Okay. Oh, Stephen is explaining why he needs 2 H2Ds. Okay, so custom rack mount brackets for things that weren't designed to be rack mounted. It was significantly cheaper to buy them than outsource the job to a print farm due to volume. Oh, wow, okay. I printed, hang on, before I end the stream, I'm going to show you a rack mount thing that I printed yesterday on my X1. In fact, I'm going to grab it now. Oh, otherwise, I'm going to forget. So this thing that I have just gone to fetch is for rack mounting a Unify Ethernet switch that is not intended to be rack mounted. It's, you can see here, there is a location here for mounting the switch. So this is for an 8-port gigabit PoE switch. The switch mounts in there with the front panel exposed. And the particular switch, so it's the USW, I think. I can't remember what the Unify product code is for it. It's got 7 ports on the front, and then it's got 1 port on the back, which is annoying when you're putting it in a rack. So what I've done is I've got this pass-through Ethernet connector, which is mounted in there, and you can see there are holes there for the cable tie. So the idea, my plan is mount the switch in here and then have an Ethernet patch cable that plugs in the back here, loops around, plugs into the back port on the Ethernet switch, and yeah, the patch lead cable ties onto there to keep it all protected. Did someone say cable tie? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to use a cabletti on here around the patch lead that loops to the back of the Ethernet switch. So anyway, yeah, I 3D printed that yesterday. In 2 pieces, it's 2 halves that are attached, screwed together in the middle. You can see the line, the gap between them, but it's, yeah. I would really like a printer that is big enough to print a rack thing in one piece. Unfortunately, the X1C does not even come close. Yeah. Poor cable tie. Going to get stuffed into John's rack. Yeah. Yes. Cabletti is going to be living in my rack. Yeah, couldn't tell on screen. I'm going to end this stream because I am tired and I'm hungry. It's now at 3 hours and 17 minutes. Oh, all right. But I will just do a very brief wrap up. So I've got the Python script which I currently use for processing those images. What I'm going to do is make another Python script which connects to the API in the same way as this this
At
curl
Amanda
connection did.
_RFT said, a belt feed 3D printer.
Haha, belt feed.
Guru.
Yes, a belt feed 3D printer would do it. Then you can print infinitely long things if you have an infinitely long support coming off the end. Don't yawn. So what am I doing? Yeah, anyway, I'm gonna break this down into stages. First stage, I am going to create a Python script that I can run on my local machine, which processes that takes the image files that have already been processed and it pushes them up to the API using this, basically doing the same thing as this curl call is doing. Then in a future version, what I can do is merge that functionality into the script that processes the images, so it can be done in one step. But what I want to be able to do is take just a big folder of images that have already been processed and push them up to the API without doing anything else. So that's going to be the first step. Processing them is going to be the second step. But yeah, and I think I will do that today. Like, I'm going to continue working on this after the stream, but I do need to take a break. I need to eat breakfast because I haven't actually even eaten breakfast yet. I came straight here and grabbed a coffee on the way. So far the only thing I consumed today is like 2/3 of a coffee. And my stomach is very well aware of it. And then I'm going to work on the upload script that pushes these up to the end device, to the register. Okay, so the future of this. What else do I want to do? Okay, I want to probably add some more information to the dashboard, largely to make it fancier. On the boards, I want to refactor all of this this timeline. I want to merge event, test log, and images so it becomes a timeline. Yeah. Also, that's right. I want to rename. Now, this is one thing I do want to change. So if I go to upload image, you can see it's got image add. In fact, I'm going to do this right now. So we've got the API endpoint called add device image. And what I want to do for consistency is rename the web interface so that instead of doing image add, it does add device image, because image add is used in the API for adding a test record, and that means this is ambiguous. If you have device 5678 image add in the API, that adds a test record. In fact, that would have to be the primary key of the test record, not of the device. So let's fix that. Let's use Claude. Oh, that's evil. Tinker says, I have one client where I like to intentionally clip zip ties at an angle. They're an annoying part-time client. Yeah, that's like throwing caltrops or like a handful of nails or screws on a road, leaving all the pointy bits sticking up. Okay, so let's see this. I want to... Okay, next thing I'm going to do is boink, modify the web image upload so that the URL uses add device image instead of image add. I think that should do it. I'm just going to just go for it. Do a very basic description of what I want. Because this is going to be a tiny change. I mean, obviously I could make this change myself. I could just edit the files. All it's doing is replacing a couple of things in the views, etc., and in the URL handler. So, is it done? Is it done? So let's see what it has changed. URLs.
At Cable T said, John,
No.
what are you doing? Finish the stream.
What am I doing? I am updated the URL pattern. This does not look correct. Or is it? Ah, I see. It takes it from the URL patterns. So that was the only change. Okay, that change was simpler than I expected. It is literally a one-line change because the URL patterns are used for the router, etc. Okay, that's really cool. Let's test it. Let's come back to here. In fact, if I reload this page now, that is probably going to be broken. I might get a 404. I hope I do. Let's see. Yeah, I get a 404. Nice. Okay. So now if I come back to here and I'm going to reload this page so that the upload image link is correct, it is now going to add device image. Yes, that's good. And now if I've just got to find myself an image file. Let's do this one. Boink, test of new URL, upload image, and test of new URL, and it worked. Well, that was certainly easy. So coming back into here, we can see that it has made one tiny change to one file, device image add. Add device image. Name, hang on, add device image. Name is device image add, okay. That is image add, device image add. That is annoying me. Oh no, it doesn't have to match. Like we've got, for example, DE add, device event add. So the name, it does irk me a little that here the name of it is device image add and here it is add device image. I'm going to keep it. All right. Oh. Okay. Stephen says, this stream is now longer than the movie Titanic. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it here. But we now have the we have actually done something today. It's been very slow and long-winded, and most of it has been talking, but we have achieved something, which is a new API endpoint that allows images to be uploaded and yeah, and stored against devices. So that's nice. What is this one? 5678. Yeah. Oh, and we can delete them as well. And it asks to confirm. Do you want to delete? Yep. This is the one that we just uploaded. Now I can I can screw around in this as much as I like and delete stuff and mess around with the data, because this is my local test installation. And it's very easy to tell because it looks so different. It's got the new user interface on it. So when I can, I'm going to update the actual, like the live online portal, and put real data into it rather than messing around with this test data. Well, it's kind of based on, it is real data, but I'm treating it like test data because nobody else is seeing it but me. And now you. Okay. So I am, say Uru again. Hang on, blocked due to bad word.
Uru again.
Uru again. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go. I'm going to go have breakfast. Thank you very much for hanging out for this epic 3-hour, 28-minute stream. Next Sunday is Barbecue Sunday. So if you are in Melbourne and you would like to come along to the Nerd Barbecue next week, do that. As Stephen says, thanks and see you next week at the barbecue. Where's the button? There it is. There's the end button. So, we didn't do nerd brags this week, but this stream is long enough already. Save your nerd brags for next week. And I will talk to you all later. Thank you. See ya.